This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast.
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
I think I love the point that you're making about asking your neighbors. Because, of course, asking your neighbors has upsides, but it also has downsides. And I kind of feel like the thing I want to, the big thing I want to convey is that it's like when I was trying years ago, before even starting making podcasts, I was trying to help people. I was working on a board for a community incubator. And there were times that I was the guy that was there to try to help this forming community form. And the thing is when you're brand new to it and you really haven't put much time into community, then everything is hearts and flowers and rainbows, and there is no fine print.
Consensus. It's all about consensus. When people form a community, they're like, we're going to make our decisions by consensus.
And there's more than consensus these days.
Oh, I know.
And so, but setting all that aside, the thing is that they assume everybody is noble. And the thing, the dark message that I have, and I feel like I'm just Mr. Darkness all the time. My dark message is everybody is human. 1 out of 20 will be noble, and you don't know who. And you might think that they're noble, and then later you'll find out, oops, I guess not. And so, and I kind of feel like you got to design your systems for people to be human. And if you don't, then you will be sad and frustrated. And I kind of feel like that's a big part of what we're talking about. But when talking to your neighbors, I think that I'm not sure if I've ever shared this in a podcast, but I knew of a couple. I never met them. I heard this particular story. And they went to go live and grow cherries, which sounds very monocrop to me, and so I'm already against it. But they were going into cherry territory, and so they bought themselves something like 80 acres of cherries. And he went and visited with the locals, but they were going to do only sustainable, only organic, only regenerative, only all the good things, complete with, bees and so many other crops, subcrops, and all. It was going to be this giant fountain. But he visited the neighbors, and within 4 years, they were 100% conventional and 100% going fucking broke.
Yeah.
The cost of doing it all was greater than the amount of money that they would get in the harvest. Now, also, I've talked with Sepp Holzer about this a few times, and I hope I've shared it in the podcast, but Sepp Holzer's like, why would anybody want to do any commodity food market? Because you're going to be doing it, and you're going to be paying to do it. So you always have to have a job on the side to keep yourself alive. And it's like you're going to end up going into the red. And then that kind of comes back to the whole movie Broken Limbs about the apple industry in central Washington state, and which I know I've conveyed in the podcast several times. Okay, so the thing is about talking to your neighbors. And on top of that, like, let's say you're going to say, I'm not going to spray. Oh, you just informed somebody who's now going to call the department of making you sad to bring the sprayers over. Now they're going to spray on your property, and you have to pay for it.
Well, fortunately, in our area, that doesn't happen anymore because they've diverted funds to everything else. So they don't have any money for that, for coming out and doing enforced weed control. But, another way of putting it, I think, is to consider your Wheaton eco-scale. Right? Because if you're up at an eco-scale of 3, maybe, right? Is that where somebody who's been in boot camp for like 3 months might be, or 4?
Sure. Let's say if somebody's been here, if somebody's been here in the boot camp for 4 months, I'll say that they are eco level 3. Sure.
Okay. All right.
I'll
so
go
3.
with that.
And let's say that we were at level 4, and you have a breakdown of that. And I don't want to make any particular claim. I'm just saying, we're somewhere in there, right?
Okay.
We are not Sepp Holzer. Okay.
Right.
We're moving there, right? But then you go and you talk to your neighbors in the Soil and Water District, and they're level 1 or 0.
Yeah.
And they cannot conceive of what in the world you're talking about. And one of the stories goes, I was talking with the neighbor down the road, not an immediate neighbor, and also, very active in statewide sort of, pasture and grass-fed and, various kinds of committees. And, she was like, oh, well, just keep grazing the land, with your animals, and, the grasses will just keep getting better. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, this is what I want to do anyway. So I'm just kind of, I'm just grazing. And my pastures, by the time you came out, were getting worse, right? And I had all of that hawkweed. Hawkbit, actually, as opposed to hawkweed. But anyway, and things were just not going in that direction. And so this neighbor came over and was looking around and said, well, you did fertilize, didn't you? And I'm like, no, I didn't fertilize. She said, well, of course you have to fertilize. And, this is that tacit knowledge again, right? Because for this person, of course you do this. Right. Even though, organic, grass-fed, rotational, right? All of these things still, oh no, you gotta put all of this stuff on your land. And it's like, okay, so that kind of broke me in that sense of like, all right, I've got to find alternate sources of expertise and also develop my own. And I've leaned in on that, and I am really happy with how things are going thus far. I've got a long ways to go, but I feel like I am on the right track. And whereas before, I was, in a sense, sitting on the fence. And sitting on the fence is an uncomfortable place to be. And so to your cherry farmers, right? You go and you talk to the experts. I'm giving little air quotes there, people. And
thank you for that. Thank you.
The experts, it's like, oh, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. This is what the big boys with 10,000 acres of cherries do. And of course, at that point, you're a fool if you're trying to compete on 80 acres with people who grow cherries on 10,000 acres, because economies of scale are just going to crush you. And so you've got to find your own place in your own way.
I mean, of course, I'm going to advocate for not getting 80 acres of cherry trees. I'm going to advocate for not getting, and I'm going to advocate do not get into commodity markets. I'm also going to say don't even get into the organic markets, which are dominated by people where they're formerly of the conventional markets, but then they do substitution organic. They're like, I used to use Roundup, and so instead of using Roundup, I use this.
Well, as you say, organic or better, and we're starting to see labels of sustainable or regenerative coming along, and those are not as tightly defined as organic, because organic actually has a legal meaning. But these other systems, I think, have the potential to be far superior. And then, for instance, what we've done is, quote, not organic, because we're not certified organic, and I'm sorry, if I've got a fence post to put in, I might put in a fence post, and it might not be considered an organic fence post, right? But in other ways, in terms of like trying to improve soil health, animal health, animal conditions, these sorts of things, I know that we're better than a lot of organic stuff. Yeah.
So the thing I'm going to advocate for is gratitude, and you guys have 40 acres, and And you were raising miniature cattle there for a while.
They were not miniature.
Dexters.
They're short-legged cows. They are not miniature.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
Don't call them miniature. You're going to have all the Dexter owners after you.
So, okay, Dexters. You're raising Dexters, which I don't know. To my poor vision, maybe it's just because they were farther away. They looked smaller. That's why. So
they are not tall.
Okay.
This is true. And as a tall person, they look very small until they step on your foot, and then you realize that they're not that small.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair. The point I'm trying to make is that if you talk to a level 0 person with acres, they're going to come up. They're going to give you a very low, and then of course the way that they phrase it is going to be the only way is this way,
right.
and which is part of the reasons why I created Permies.com is because when I would go to some of the homesteading forums, I would get shouted out. And it's like if you're not using Roundup, you're not doing shit.
Oh yeah. Well,
and it's like it was an absolute fact. You're not allowed to contest it because I stated it as a fact. And so then there's that. Then you go out to the permaculture forums, and then I get shouted down because Americans don't know fucking anything. Only Australians know. And so, and I was like, I just wanted to get a conversation going about hugelkultur back then. I mean, this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it was really, it was made so impossible that in the end I ended up making my own forums just so I could have this conversation.
Sure.
And so I'm glad I did. I mean, it's gone really well. It turns out I'm not the only one that wanted to have this conversation. But the thing is that if you talk to somebody and you got to keep in mind too, for every level 1 person that you find and you can talk to, there's 10 times as many people at level 0. That's the whole definition of the scale.
That's right.
And if you're trying
a pyramid.
Logarithmic.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to paddock shift systems, I think most people will not believe it, and they'll just say it's snake oil and bullshit and lies and whatever else. But once you've done it, and it's like, fuck. It's like you have 5 times more growies. Like you'll have a piece that's outside the fence that your animals don't go to, and then the amount of growth inside of the fence that your animals are about to go to, and you haven't fertilized or done anything else but paddock shift, and it's like there's 5 times more biomass, and I'll bet for where you're at, you may have even seen 10 times more biomass.
We will get there. Our pastures were pretty beaten down from decades of haying operation.
Ooh, yeah, extracting all the organic matter.
Yeah. So much of modern agriculture should be reclassified as extraction because they are mining the soil. But it's coming back, and it is astonishing to see the differences in some of my pastures, which have now been fallow for almost 3 years. And how they're doing just by me leaning in on soil health stuff, even without having the animals. And I'm really looking forward to integrating animals back into that system. Yeah.
I think when we started recording this, I think that the big thing that I really, really, really wanted to make sure that we talked about is something that I think that most of my pod people probably don't believe. And I think that my pod people don't believe it because most people don't believe it. And that is the thing like when they go to get property or whatever and they've got 2 buildings on there, I'll just rent the other building. And I kind of feel like that can be a great thing. It can be a beautiful thing, a very positive thing. But I think that, and I think also when I say this to my pod people, they'll think back and they'll recall stories from some people that they know where it went sideways. And of course, people are like, "Oh, that'll never happen to me because I'm delightful." And it's like, and so no one would ever be that. But it's like, I don't know how many times I've seen it happen. I've had some of it firsthand myself. And of course, when anything goes sideways for me, the whole world gets to hear about it. And I'm the villain until I can prove my innocence. But hey, that's just part of the role I've elected to take on. First of all, I want to say you guys are intimately familiar with me and everything that has always gone on here, every detail.
From the beginning.
And I kind of feel like I'm a fucking saint. I'd like to get some validation on this point, please. I feel like I'm very generous and I'm very patient.
Yes.
And I have been a saint at dealing with some pretty horrible people. Now, granted, most of the people that come through are delightful, but of course, you can't have delightful people sticking around if you're going to allow the horrible people to stick around too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay, let's just mirror this in a little way.
Okay.
I think we're both pretty lovely.
Sure.
And I remember there was one young man that had been working for us and helped out with the house in Portland and so forth. And then he had a tiny house and he spent some time out at the farm as well, and that was cool. And then when I was working with him on some stuff with getting the mobile home ready, it's just sort of explaining, what some of the things that had gone on with the others that were now leaving. And he was just like, I have screwed up several times working with you. And and he's a young guy, and so I was willing to sort of take him under my wing in a way, right? And he made some screw ups, and he recognized them, and he did better, and he was forgiven. And so he was just thinking about the times that he'd screwed up, and he'd been forgiven, and then these people had screwed up enough that they had not been forgiven, and he was just like, wow, they must have really screwed up. Because his own experience was that we were understanding, forgiving, patient people. And I think that we were too forgiving and patient. In other ways.
I think that,
yeah. But if you you find a piece of land and you're like, oh great, it's got two houses on it or something, and we'll just rent the other one. I think what's happening there is in our own minds, we like to think that most other people are like us. And the problem is, within the permaculture world, we are a distinct, very small minority of people.
And then within the permaculture world, there's a bunch of wackadoodle. Like the flavors of permaculture are, and on top of that, there are some people that are kind of like, the only form of permaculture that exists is my form of permaculture. Bill Mollison is wrong. You're wrong. They're wrong. Everybody else is wrong except for me. I'm the only one that's right. There's a lot of that kind of mentality, which we don't allow on permies.
Says the guy who has permaculture education according to Paul.
Oh yeah, no, and the whole thing about permaculture experience, permaculture experience according to Paul is to try to be able to say like,
this is your
this version. Is me, and if you want to make you want to make Julia permaculture experience according to Julia, please go make it. Don't make me your personal bitch.
Experience according to Eliot. That would be P.
Nobody wants a P badge. I can't imagine why.
Have a little courage, man. Have a little courage. The thing is that I just had way too many people telling me how to live my life and what to write down, and they want me to write down their story, and they want me to create a program that meets their standards. And it's like, okay, this one's according to Paul. You go make your own.
Right.
I don't want to make my own. I want you to be obedient to me.
And it's people confusing principles with techniques.
Fair.
Right? Because if you remove all of the different techniques and you just get down to principles, you suddenly discover that you have a lot more in common with these other, shades out there. But I just remember at once on Permies even having a weird discussion about, what was a swale.
Oh.
And some people think a swale is on contour. Some people say it's off contour. Some people say it's only there for, it's there to hold water. It's there to direct water. It's, everybody suddenly had a different meaning of what a swale was. So I stopped using the word swale.
Somebody thinks that a swale is off contour?
Yes.
And moves water instead of holds water.
That's a ditch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we are, right? So,
and so a swale is a leaky pond that is like snake-shaped.
It's a long, skinny pond.
It's a long, skinny, leaky pond.
Leaky pond, yes, which is not meant
if
to
it's
hold
off
water.
Contour and it's meant to hold water, that's called a ditch. That's different than a swale.
So, anyway, I just ran into a bunch of different versions of that. And then you go over to, the Appropriate Technology Wiki or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I like those guys.
And then I looked there, and they
Appropedia.
Yeah, Appropedia. And they had, sort of a different definition than what some people were saying, and it was just like, look, who cares what the word is? This is what I'm doing, all right? I will describe its functionality. You use whatever words you want, right?
Speaking of, I want to point out, I asked for a little validation about what an awesome guy I am, and
yes.
You guys changed the subject, which
Okay, sorry. Here, Julia, you can start.
just a little validation, because you know the stories that are here. You know stuff that we didn't even share in podcasts.
No, I think that there are it's just one story after another of extending generosity and extending benevolence and people biting the hand that feeds them and sort of discovering, because like at the first,
it's not
it was
that often
before the boot camp. It was the how many month long party?
Oh, the 18-month, the 20-month, the 20-month.
The Ant Village.
The Ant Village came after the 20-month party.
First you got the property, and it's like, we finally have the property. Everybody come on out, and we'll finally do all the things. But the people that came were like people trying to get off drugs and people with like these issues and that issues, and it just...
we had upsides as well as downsides.
Always,
and it's like, and I kind of feel like...
couple that's in the teepee.
The teepee, Emily and Tony, they were so delightful.
Awesome.
They were so great.
And a lot of other great things got done in those early years. I just remember when I came through in the fall of 2013, and the sawmill was in operation down at the shop, and somebody was building the big rolly cabinets that are in there.
Yeah.
And, things were starting to move and pop, right?
Yeah.
And so there was clearly some pent-up demand. Anyway, but back to the question about Paul, and it's, yes, the problem is you also live a public life.
True.
And so then, we have, one particular family that does not necessarily need to be named, and their video, and it's just like...
I wish you could have seen the face that Julia just made.
Yes. Would you care to mispronounce their last name? Anyway.
No. We don't. Basically, I got a 1-star review from people where it was like, they were here long enough, I got to learn a lot about them, and I would give them a 1-star review also.
Right.
They had a different value set.
They did, and they also had their own little YouTube channel, which they felt was going to their head, that they had some sort of fandom and some sort of seat of power from which they could decide what was right and what was wrong and make judgment. And but what I would say is that I have met some really lovely people out here.
Yeah.
And, the people who have stayed are just fantastic. And, and I have slightly different value sets than some of them, right? Because, some of them are vegan and I'm not a vegan, and I have various reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that they are some of the loveliest, best examples of humanity on the planet. And they're here. And you could be too. You just kind of gotta lean into it. And people hate for all sorts of crazy and stupid reasons, and that's not the way to make a decision.
I think the core of it, and that people with that video are a great example. People come to me and tell me how I have to live my life. They say, I have to think these thoughts, I have to say these words, I have to, behave the way that they command me to behave, or else.
Yeah.
And so what you see in that video is there or else, which to me, the video is really, the subtext of the video is, Paul is fucking amazing. This is the worst we could think of.
Right, this is all we could come up with.
The most dominant part of the whole thing was 2 miles away from the event we're attending, there's a gate, and he's locked it. I mean, that was the worst thing that they could come up with. 2 miles away from this event, we heard a story about a gate. And it's like, so when I watch the video, it's like, I am fucking amazing if these people hate me so much because I wouldn't be obedient to them. They hate me so much and they're so fucking crazy. This is the worst that they could come up with. This is the stuff that is considered. I'm the most wicked.
The gate is locked.
Yeah.
It's a locked
and there's
gate.
People behind the gate.
It's a gate that you can walk around.
They left that out. It sounds like they're in a cage, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's like you can walk over it, you can walk around it. It's just to stop cars. No mention of the fact that all the people up there have a key to the gate. Yeah, everyone's got a key.
Yeah, and it's like
yeah.
And what would life be up there be like without that gate is the real question.
Ooh,
and so the whole question of context is totally missing from that. And let me put it this way, everybody out there in Podland who's wondering what in the world's going on. Why am I here? Why do I parachute in on occasion and do things, right?
Yeah.
Because lead boot had to go off and take care of some other things. Well, things still have to get done around here. Things seem to move along. And so the call went out. It's like, hey, any chance you could come on out and help for a bit? And I'm like, you know what? I could. And so I get to come out here. I get, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm leaning in with my own time. I do have other things I could be doing. I make a choice. That's fine. But I think after my sort of, almost 2 weeks out here, I'm leaving having made some real contributions, which are going to improve the experience for everybody else who comes out here.
Yes.
And that makes me feel good. And I have to say, I'm also not in the habit of doing that for people who are not nice, right? I mean, why would I do that?
Right, you're a good person. Why would you give 2 weeks of your life and drive out here for an ogre?
Right.
Oh God! I gotta go work for the ogre again. He's such an ogre.
Unchained circus bear.
Yeah. Unchained circus bear. Otherwise, he'll somehow get me in Portland, and it'll be bad.
It's just.
Yeah, that's insane.
And the times I have been out here, because I've done. I taught at PTJ last year. I've been present for 1 or 2 other PTJs and a couple of Rocket Mass events. The boots who have been here have universally been pleasant for me.
Yeah.
I know they haven't necessarily been pleasant for you, but this is just the world.
I have to say that the ones that are not pleasant, they usually are pleasant for 95% of the time that they're here, and then the last 5% they've decided to go, and rather than just going, they're like, the only way I ever leave any place is with scorched earth. And it's like, really, you don't have to scorch the earth before you go. No, I must.
Yeah. Right.
I must.
And so, as a participant in events, as an instructor, the boots are in a good class of person.
I agree.
And that has made it much easier for me along the way to assist the boots in their learning. Because, it's always like there's a boot and they're trying to do something. And I see they're trying to do something because they've been told they're supposed to be doing something. But maybe they don't really know. And, it's really great to come along and say, hey, I see that you're trying to learn something. Can I offer you a suggestion? And
because they're good people.
Because they're good people, and they're humble.
Of course.
And I don't know everything.
And there's not a race.
No, there's no race. And, we lean into it, and off we go. And, we do the best that we can. And you're trying to do a lot here. I mean, sure. This is my own little internal voice criticism. Oh, geez, we're trying to do a lot on maybe not enough here, right?
Sure.
And that
is homesteading.
Which is homesteading.
Yeah.
Put Paul's brain on your plot. Do you have a hunk of land but don't know where to start? Do you have a world-changing permaculture idea and you need some feedback? Do you feel like the guy in overalls may inexplicably hold the keys to all your wildest permaculture and homesteading dreams? Well, you're probably wrong. But if you want to give it a go anyway, you can hire Paul for a consultation. He will be all yours for a whole entire hour. Schedule your Paulversation today at permies.com/consult. permies.com/consult.
Feel like why we need more boots. But then also, if you can't be a boot, you can still come out and play.
I think in the years past, we've had a lot of people come out and rent a cabin, and it would oftentimes be a couple that rents a cabin, and then he'll have to do his worky job in the cabin, and then she'll come and be in the boot camp full time.
Oh.
So we've had a lot of that.
Yeah.
But we've also had people where it's like they rent a cabin and then they join the boot camp off and on as they feel like it. Like, well, what's the boot camp working on today? Do I want to be in on that?
Right.
Otherwise, it's like I'm going to, I've got to do 10 hours per week of stuff. So today I'm going to skip the boot camp. But I kind of feel like, okay, you're saying what a great class of people. And I kind of feel like a large part of that is because of the design we are attempting to do. I'm not saying that we have a great recipe just yet, but so far it's going pretty good, I think. Mm-hmm. And as part of the recipe, then we have some people who just show up that are great. We have some people who are aspiring to be delightful and lovely, and I think our group is guiding them to that. Like in a previous life, they might have been a little on the clunky side, let's say, and they aspire to be better.
Yeah.
And so there's some of that. And then once in a long while, we get somebody who is not a fit, and they usually go down the road very quickly. Like they try to command how everything is to be, and they don't get what they want. Therefore, everybody here is an asshole, and then they go.
But my sense also of...
Well, wait, let me just finish this thing. Trying to make an environment that entices good people, kind of like what you're noticing. Try to make something that either entices good people or builds good people. But if people are not into either of those packages, they kind of don't like being here. And that's the system. That's what we're trying to build and create.
Yes, and trying to come up with something which is the equivalent of 100% success rate of everybody is happy means you're not doing anything in the end, right? Other than you're trying to make everybody who's here happy. You're not actually accomplishing other goals, and you're not sharpening yourself. And I do think, based upon having watched Boots come and go for some time, and hearing the stories of some of their departures, is that it starts off well, they do well, they're here for a period of time, and there's just a line in there for some people where it's like, I'm done in one sense.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time for me to go and do something else. Maybe it's time for me to take a break. This is life. We grow. As we grow and change, we want different things. That's fine. And just recognizing, advice for any future boot, if you're here, go ahead and do that time out and say, you know what? I've been here for 4 months. I've really done this, but I think I need to go and do something else now. Yeah. And you know what? Then it's like, hey, here's a handshake. Thank you very much. It's been great having you, and you are welcome back when the moon comes back around in its cycle, and you're like, I think I need some more of that. Mm-hmm. And it's really when people overstay because they want to, right? They want to stick it out.
They feel like they have to.
Or they feel they have to, and obligation is poison.
Then their inner child acts up and they do something stupid.
Yeah. And so I don't see any problem with the system per se. And you can be intense, Paul. Have you noticed this?
I've heard it. I've heard it, and by intense, what I have observed by me being intense is when somebody tells me what to do, and I emphatically, I don't yell no, but what I do is I say, I have my own reasons that I'm going to not do what you suggest. And it's like, well, I wasn't suggesting. I'm telling you there's no other way. You have to do it this way. I guess I'm going to suffer under my ignorance of not being you. Yeah. I mean, intense meaning that I am, which is a word, a euphemism perhaps of sorts of not being obedient.
That's definitely a thing. Well, let's just say other times you can be animated because you are a passionate person about many of these things, and they get you excited. Okay. And so some people, I don't know what the deal is. But
yeah, I think Julia doesn't know either.
I seem to have walked myself out onto a plank.
Oh, do go on. How's that plank looking? Is that a shark in the water there?
There are at least two of them. So they're laughing at me.
Where are we going here? I don't know.
No, I just what I'm going towards is
I live large. I love life.
Yeah,
I have so many ideas. I got a lot going on, and
other people want. They want you to be more reserved and quiet, more Dalai Lama-ish, right? And that's the way to oneness with the world and nature, and that's what they're looking for. And you can still have that. It's just because I think about the Boot High commanders.
Yeah,
Zen.
Yeah, very zen.
Very zen. And
each with their own flavor of zen.
Oh, totally.
Like, wow,
but,
really different flavors of zen.
There's a balance.
That there's a balance of things. And, in having, via our property and trying to talk with people, sort of, we're pretty close with Paul Wheaton, and some people don't know what in the world that means, and Wheaton Labs and so forth, and that's fine. And then other people, they kind of get this face when you, and it's really curious to me, because then it's like, well, what is it that you know? Oh, well, I just hear he's a terrible person, and it's just like,
no, I am a terrible person by the values of people who have really different values.
But yeah. And it's like, well, you can listen to those people who say Paul's a terrible person, or you could ask me and say, oh, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And
I think this is the way humans work, is that, if they don't know somebody and they hear that person's a terrible person, it's like, that person's terrible until I can hear, 8 different validations that they're not.
That is the ratio. It's roughly 7 to 1.
I don't want to take the time to learn myself. I just want to, I got the idea, so okay, I'm out. And it's like, that's the way the world works. And I can't control whatever it is that they heard from whoever. But I know that, like, when I started making Permies, I had so many haters, because they tried to come onto Permies to say something shitty, and I deleted it, and they went psycho.
Yeah.
So then they went out and told everybody what a monster Paul Wheaton is. And it's like, so I got that. But it's like, anybody who accomplishes anything is loaded with detractors.
Can I share a story about
Jeff Lawton talked about in a podcast about how Jesus had detractors. They killed him. And he's a
pretty nice guy here.
So and Jeff Lawton, isn't he? I think he's Muslim, right?
Yeah.
He's Muslim.
Yeah. Just a story about Permies.com, which extends to Wheaton Labs. Permies was generally Julia's thing, because I don't live much of my life online. But there was a time when I sort of leaned in to reading and participating and getting in there, and there was a learning curve for me. And I would get some posts flagged for not being nice, and I'm like, what? Really? Okay. And it took a little while for me to be like, oh, okay. No, I guess I can see how that statement that I made, it could be seen as not nice by some people, but excuse me. But either way, it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect the other messages in my post or the other information, that it's extraneous and I can just get rid of it and I'm just whining. And so, once I hit that point, it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. This is how we do things here. Then it was so much easier. And it is a lovely thing because you can go to Permies and there isn't that hate. And there's a certain amount of hate that we reserve for, say, chemical companies or something. But other than that, it's not like other social medias or other sites, and there are no internecine warfare pieces going on within Permies. And you can go there and you can say your thing, just don't tell anybody else. Or don't judge.
Yeah.
And then everything's fine. And it's sort of a similar thing of coming out here, which is be open, be curious, learn about the stories, because there's a context and a history about why something is the way it is. Like, well, gee, Paul, why did you decide to put these berms so close to the house? Well, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're an idiot.
I think I'll let people decide if I'm an idiot or not. But I appreciate that I get the chance to talk about it.
Right. But I mean, other people could come along and be like, oh, well, you put these too close to the house. And, and look, the house is shading it in part of the year and, whatever. Sure. Right?
Yeah.
And like, but, there are reasons. And we just have to be open and curious about other people and other ways of doing things. And, in one sense, I've invoked the Dalai Lama before, right? Yeah. But in one sense, you are kind of monkish in that this is your monastery and you pretty much live here and you have a code that you try very, very hard to live by, and it's not perfect. It's not absolute, right?
Some things are more absolute than others.
Yes. Yeah. But whatever. And, there's a certain grace in that, but the fact that you have committed to living your life in a particular way and trying to share that with others, to me suggests that when somebody shows up here, they do need to be a little humble about that and leave that, oh no, I know the best way behind.
When people start the boot camp, we have, on the first day, we always have these two things to tell them. One thing is we ask that they go with the flow for the first 2 weeks. Yeah. Because they've learned a bunch of stuff outside of here that's different. And then we've had people who were like, everybody stop everything. You have to stop doing it the wrong way. Right. And let me tell you about the right way that you should be doing it. And it's, of course, what it is that, oh no, we know about the thing that you're thinking is the right way, and there's a reason why that way sucks. And we're doing here. And we're doing it this other way. Yeah. But so we've asked people just go with the flow for the first 2 weeks. And then at meals it's a great time to talk about all the details of all the things, because it used to be people were like, everybody stop work, stop, and then it's like, you're doing it all wrong! And so it's like they wanted to talk about it right in the middle of the boot day. People are out there trying to get their experiences, and there's this one new guy that's like shouting down like, so that used to be the thing. So now
acculturation.
So now we say
That's the word of the day.
That is the word.
for the first 2 weeks, go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
And that was one that Des came up with.
That's a good one.
For the first
Good
2
one,
weeks, go with the flow. And it's like, it has been great. It has really solved a lot of little issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that I came up with a few years ago is when it's your very first moment as a boot, the morning of your first boot day, then I say, he's got to point out that this is a word.
If we're going to make it the word of the day.
I thought it was going to be like if you made it up, like that'd even be better. But
Sorry.
no, now you prove to me.
I'm pointing out that I'm smart. Anyway,
okay.
Acculturation is a process of social, psychological, and cultural change, important word there, that stems from the balancing of two cultures while adapting to the prevailing culture of the society. Acculturation is a process in which an individual adopts, acquires, and adjusts to a new cultural environment as a result of being placed into a new setting.
Okay, so the second thing that I tell boots when it's the very first moment of being a boot, which is a thing I made up, is that 95% of the stuff that you do is for the benefit of you and future boots. It's not because we have a business model and we're making money.
Yeah.
You are growing a garden to feed boots. You are building a bunk to house boots. You are repairing a tool for the boots that are going to use that tool in the future.
You're labeling something so a boot can find it in the future.
Yeah. Now, Des says it's not 95%, it's 100%. But I always say 95% because it's like, I don't know, is there going to be something that like benefits a class that a boot might not be in or something? I don't know. And so, but I do think, and one could argue that everything that we do for a class is to benefit the boots. And so, I don't know, I kind of feel like almost everything that we do here is to benefit the boots, including, the separate program, which is basically cabin rentals and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, all right.
Speaking of which, cabin rentals. My wife Julia has been talking about the joy of coming and renting a cabin and like using a rocket mass heater and so forth. And having stayed in Allerton twice, once in the winter and once in the summer, once when it was 14 degrees outside and once when it was over 100 degrees outside. It is a truly magnificent thing to actually experience some of these things, because you can read about it and that's a really great idea, but until it's 14 degrees outside and you open that door and you walk in and you realize, it's 60 degrees in here and I haven't done any fire. Or it's 100 degrees outside and you walk in and you're like, oh, it's so cool in here. It doesn't really sink in. And the same thing happened for me with the red cabin and the new rocket mass heater that Uncle Mud has installed in there, and just how lovely it is in terms of the heated mass, because the red cabin's pretty small and pretty leaky, right? It's not a super air-sealed building. It's probably about as good as most buildings, maybe a little worse, but you get that mass in there going. And when I was here earlier in February, it was, I don't know, it was like 10 degrees outside. It was cold enough that diesel was gelling, right? It was really cold. And yet I lit a fire and I was fine one night, and the next day it was fine. I didn't have to do anything for 2 more days because I had gotten enough heat packed into that mass that,
combined with the urge to not make a fire.
It's
warm enough.
Well, there is a certain momentum that one gets that you have to learn about with the fire, because you can go past it, and next thing you know, the little cabin is 85 degrees, and you're like, wow, what have I done? But coming out here and experiencing some of these things is just a treat unto itself.
I think I kind of feel like when I talk about a lot of these things, they are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Like people cannot believe them.
Yeah.
It is like it's too much.
Right.
I've got to be fucking lying.
Right.
And then you come out here and you actually and I think another important thing is if you've used wood heat in the past and you've used a wood stove and you know how much wood goes in for a building this size, for how cold it is outside.
Yeah.
You do that for a while and then you use a rocket mass heater and you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, like, I mean, how much wood did I put into the rocket mass heater in the red cabin last night? Less than a bucket, and I'm thinking like a small bucket.
Well, I figure you probably put in, 15 inches by 72 square inches. Because that's a 6x6 system. And so 36 inches in each. If you have full burn, if you really shoved it in there, would be 36 square inches. So basically, it's
so filling that 6x6 space twice with wood.
Right, and so that's basically a half foot on one side, right? Half a square foot times 15 inches of wood, which is, in a sense,
I feel like it's
holding
a bucket.
A bucket, 2 hands worth,
like that bucket there, that stainless steel bucket.
Yeah, not
wood.
much.
Yeah, so it was just not that much wood, and I usually sleep with socks on. And at some time in the middle of the night, I had to get up and take my socks off because the mass of this heater goes under the foot of the bed. So my toes were warm. My toes were very warm, and I'm like, I can't even sleep with my feet this warm. I have to take the socks off.
And yet it was in the mid-20s this morning.
Outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a little cabin, not all that well insulated.
70 degrees in the cabin.
Yeah. Montana, baby.
It's Montana. And then this one, I'm feeding it punky wood.
Right. I don't know, but out there in the stack there's some punky wood, and I'm trying to get through it, and so I brought in punky wood. It burns very fast and hot, and then it's gone. Damn, it's got a low BTU per stick. So well. Okay. Let's wrap up this podcast here pretty quick. I think that the big thing that I wanted to make sure that we recorded was that.
Was that your awesome?
Oh,
yes, Paul's awesome.
I love that part. I enjoy that part. But the thing I wanted to point out is that it's like people stuff can be really hard, and
people stuff is hard,
and it is amazing how people who seem so lovely can go so very dark. And it's like
in unexpected ways and at unexpected times.
And it's like, but I gave you so much candy, and I really bent over backwards to be lovely to you, and they
say, that's great, but that was then. This is now.
Well, I kind of think for a lot of people, no good deed goes unpunished. But I also I got to temper that with like there are a lot of good people.
Yes.
But it's like if you don't have a way to deal with the darkness, you can't have good people, because otherwise the good people are going to be like, I'm out of here. There's this whole dark people thing that you got going on here. I can't do it. I'm out.
It's the old problem of a single bad apple in the barrel will ruin the whole bunch. And you've got to have a way of weeding them out.
And I think part of me is kind of like, I don't want to mention what some of the dark people have done to you or to me, because it just makes fuel for other dark people, I think. And it's like at the same time, I do want to
say to all kind people that pay attention to red flags. And one of these people that turned out to be a big trouble. In my first conversation with her, she lied about a thing that was just dumb. And I knew it, and yet, I'm a nice person, and so I didn't immediately call her on it and jump her on it, like, why would you lie about that? I just sort of went, and then it came back to haunt me. So if you're early in a relationship and something like that happens, I mean, you might be wrong. You might be reading it wrong. You know, it'd be terrible to throw babies out with bathwater and stuff. But tit for tat seems to be the best strategy, where you start out generous, but then you give what you get. And, you know, don't go too long with the...
We just talked about an unkind video about me, but I'm going to say that I'm going to make a guess here, more than 100 people have made videos about being here that were delightful, and a lot of those people knew about that first video, and even more, a lot of those people were here for more than a year, and they made videos talking about how much they loved it here.
We should make a supercut of that.
Just let me add another project to my list.
Right.
You know.
Okay, somebody out there, you're a video.
But the thing is, there's also a lot of the BEL threads that you know, where people are talking about the projects they're working on and the fun that they're having and stuff like that. And it's kind of like I don't know. There's lots and lots and lots of positive things. I'm not saying, you know, oh, there's so much negative stuff. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, like,
trying to inoculate us against it. Because, and I was just having this thought. It's like, yeah, there are these things that we do and we have bad experiences, but we also have to balance that against, you know, we also had some fantastic experiences with some of these other tenants, and as have you. Right? I mean, like the relationship with dear Fred, you know, and
was it like 9 years he's been here
forever, it seems. And every time I come out here, I'm hoping Fred will be here, because I just kind of want to just, you know, be near the guy's halo for a little while, you know. It's just
learn his Zen a little bit. What's you know,
just a little bit,
Be around these three guys with their three Zens and kind of
just because there's something special about all of them, and I'm disappointed that we're leaving tomorrow before Stephen returns, because I would love to say hello to Stephen. I would love to give Stephen an embrace.
And here's dad jokes.
And okay, maybe that might be a consequence. That might be a consequence that I have to pay for. But there are lovely people out there, and this is a good place to come, and you can learn so much. You can basically learn as much as you can handle here. You know, you talk about being a fire hose of information sometimes, right? And you know, there's a deep well of knowledge here between, you know, just any given room that people happen to be in, but also tying into Permies and some direction about where to go on Permies to find certain things as well. But there's a deep well of knowledge, and if you're willing to come and start sipping from that, and then you drink a little bit more from that, you can learn a lot here. And it's not just the book learning. Back to my tacit versus explicit knowledge, that, you know, you can take an online course in something, right? You can take an online course in composting, but that is not the same as doing composting. It is not the same as seeing the results of composting. It's just an online course, and doing is so much better.
I think that there's going to be a lot of do here.
And speaking of that, I really need to get back to repairing.
Yeah,
okay. All right.
I've got a thing to do at the lab.
If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at Permies.com, where we're going to talk about community, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
I'm Edward Norton. No, not that one, the other one. And I love pies. No, not that kind, the other kind. Permies is an old-school forum packed full of friendly people who occasionally give out a slice of pie. You'll never forget your first slice of pie. It made me feel so good, I had to buy a whole pie so I could share the love. Oh, and there's apples too. Sign up at Permies.com to join in the world of homesteading and permaculture, and you too might get a slice of pie.